When the sun goes down, the stars come out. From deep in the heart of Texas, it's The Star at Night. Coming to you from the Cowboys facility at The Star in Frisco. With your hosts, Kelsey Charles and David Hellman.
What's up, everyone? Kelsey Charles and David Hellman here, and you are watching another episode of The Star at Night, Valentine's Day edition. Dave, happy Valentine's week.
No, I refuse. I hate love. It doesn't exist, but I love doing this show with you. So that's where I'm at. Hi.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. We'll be each other's Valentines, if not for all our, anything.
I feel like for somebody, like, we're not dating, but you just go out of your way to, like, throw little, like, breadcrumbs. Like, you're just trying to confuse people. I'm not your Valentine. I'm not doing anything for Valentine's
You know what?
Day.
I've been rejected enough this year, so maybe you could stop adding fuel to the fire. So anyways, we're going to move into the game before Dave continues to wreck my already black soul. So in light of our miserable dating lives, my friend, we're going to go ahead and play.
It's a pandemic.
We're going to go ahead and play a game of dating apps. Okay? It's swipe left. It's swipe right. We all know how to do this. It's a thing. So I'm going to ask you a scenario. You're going to tell me if you're swiping left on it or if you're swiping right because you are in favor of it. First one up, Alden Smith. So the Cowboys, should they show Alden Smith some love and go ahead and bring him back again next season? Are you swiping left or are you swiping right on this scenario?
Okay, I've got a really good one for this. I'm going to swipe right. Here's the thing. It's much more realistic to think Alden Smith could come back than Robert Quinn last year. Robert Quinn had 11 and a half sacks. He broke the bank. Alden Smith kind of tapered off around midseason. Still had a decent year, but not that type of bank-breaking season that leads you to a huge contract. So I think you swipe right. Now, the challenge is, where are all my dating app people at? Because matching is just the beginning. Because then you've got to navigate through like 2 or 3 days of small talk. And in this instance, the small talk is agreeing on a number. I wonder how painful that's going to be for the Cowboys. So like, I'm swiping right, but can the Cowboys actually get through the small talk and get to a date? We will see. That was masterful right there. Like, if you've been on an app, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Put that on your reel, my friend. You're a genius for that. But I'm with you. I, too, am swiping right because, I feel like I'm going to be one of those people that just swipes right on everything that we're about to go through. And I'm totally okay with that because Alden Smith...
Hopeless romantic.
Yeah, it's a love connection for me. He ended the season with 5 sacks. It's a 1.5 sacks behind the sack leader. We all know who that was, D-Law. So I would totally be in favor of getting another year with that man on our team. So hopefully these two can make a connection and make that happen.
Get through the small talk. Just get through the small talk.
Just get through the small talk. It's so true. Wow, that is so true, Dave.
I know. Matching is only the first step in the battle.
The same 10 existential questions. Like you're like, oh.
And this is why I hate love. All right, just go on to the next one. Just keep going.
All right. Well, I already know my answer to this one too, because again, I'm a hopeless romantic. So I'm going to go back to one of my favorite Dallas Cowboys players. In light of the Hall of Fame announcements this past week, are we thinking DeMarcus Ware is next up?
It's a foregone conclusion. I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's 9th all time in sacks. He won that Super Bowl with Denver, which only bolstered his case. One of the best edge rushers of the 2010s decade. Yes, I think he's in. No doubt about it. Swipe right. Get on in there, D-Ware. We'll see you in Canton.
Super like that status real quick. This is depressing, the references I'm making. Oh my gosh.
No. I hate it here.
I hate this journey for us. All right. Well, it's fine. It's not fine. So, on the topic of defense, you all watched Super Bowl this past week. I know. And we realized, defense might be important because while Brady got the MVP award, arguably Todd Bowles and his team might have done equally as good of a job in keeping that team in the game and sealing the deal. So are you swiping right or left on the concept that, yeah, defense wins championships?
Swipe left all day. I don't give a damn. Where were Patrick Mahomes' starting offensive tackles? Oh, yeah, they were back in Kansas City. Mitchell Schwartz has been on IR for half the year. Eric Fisher hurt his Achilles in the AFC Championship game and couldn't play. If Patrick Mahomes has more time to throw, the Chiefs win that game. They played a bang-up defensive line in Super Bowl 54 against San Francisco. Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, and he did just fine, leading Kansas City back from a fourth-quarter deficit to win that game. Yes, defense is important. Give me the better quarterback all day. It just wasn't Pat's day. He didn't have time to throw. I don't care. I'm swiping left on this nonsense.
I would swipe right if a couple of offensive tackles came across my screen for those boys up in KC. I felt for him real heavy in that regard. So anyways.
Is that more of a statement on offensive line play, or your penchant for big bearded guys? Like, where does that fall on the spectrum?
I will let the audience decide. So anyways. This is a dumpster fire, and we're keeping every bit of this in the show. Last but not least, Valentine's Day is not the worst holiday. Dave, are you swiping left or are you swiping right on that conclusion that our love-bitten producer made us include in the show? Like, what? Why is he making us talk about this? Like, he has a girlfriend, and of course, he's like, Valentine's Day is not the worst holiday. Anyways.
Producer Caden just wants to brag about having a date. Valentine's Day isn't even a holiday. It's nothing. There's no real significance to it. I don't even remember the origin story. I don't want to know. Don't tell me. Don't tweet it at me. It was invented for greeting card companies and chocolatiers to make money. It's stupid. I've always hated it. Even when I've had girlfriends, I hated it because it means it's another thing I've got to spend money on.
Okay.
It's trash. It'll always be trash. How about you?
I don't feel as strongly about it, but I'm also not trying to spend $150 for a set menu dinner that, like, I can't even pick my own appetizer. Like, come on, man. I'm going to go to Valentine's Day dinner on the Monday after. But yeah, go ahead and send me flowers. I like orange roses, and that would be great. The end.
Listeners at home, if you ever have a chance to take Kelsey Charles out, take it from me. She wants to order every appetizer, like minimum 2, probably 3. So do not take her somewhere with a set menu. It will not work. So now that you know way more about our love lives than you wanted to, we actually have a very exciting guest coming up. Our friend Matt Miller, formerly of Bleacher Report, has a new venture he's going to tell us all about right after this.
Welcome back, everyone. All right, Dave. So we all know that you are quite the draft nerd. If you don't know already, you can catch him over on the Draft Show. So we thought it was only fitting to bring in a very special guest today, Matt Miller with the Draft Scout. Flirt by favor, Matt is joining us. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. And good that we have 2 draft nerds together. We can gang up now, which is great.
Which I was about to say, I don't want to make you feel too old, Matt, but I feel like I've been reading your stuff since I was probably in high school, give or take. Which,
oh my god,
anybody? Yeah, I know. We don't have to get into it. Maybe college. It might have been college. Either way, but anybody that follows the draft knows that you were the voice of the draft for Bleacher Report for a very long time, which, coincidentally enough, you're out on your own now, launching the Draft Scout. And I think y'all put your first story up today, and I guess can you just kind of give us the spiel and what we can expect from this next step that you've been teasing for a little bit?
Yeah, so I'd like to say I actually started covering the draft like when I was 18. So I've been doing this a long time, not just a Bleacher Report. So if Dave, you've been reading me that long, that's my excuse. You're right. After 10 years, I just felt like it was time to do something different to kind of re-energize myself. You know, when you work for a big company like a Bleacher Report that covers a lot of different things, they don't need you to cover the draft every day. So you're not posting as much content as I would like to. You know, I enjoy writing, and this 7-round mock draft that comes out, it's over 10,000 words. So I enjoy writing. I enjoy sharing analysis. So launching out on my own, it will be all the draft content that you've gotten used to over the years of Bleacher Report, mock drafts, player rankings, big boards, team needs, rumors and notes, but also a lot more in terms of trying to build a community around people that actually love the draft, where we're doing virtual events right now until we can all safely get back out and do in-person events, tailgate tours. I'm working with a couple breweries where we can get out and have some beverages and talk football. So just trying to have fun and find a place where everybody who loves the draft can hang out and learn and share their own opinions too.
So I don't want to jump in front of you, Kels. I know you got your own stuff you want to get into, but I'm fascinated by that because, Matt, just reading your stuff and knowing your work, we know that this is going to be a challenging draft cycle for the actual league. The season was weird. Half the best prospects didn't play. The Senior Bowl was weird. You're not going to have a traditional combine. The list goes on and on and on. But on top of that, people like yourself, you rely on these events to get information. You're meeting and mingling and listening to the rumors and trying to figure out what's BS and what's true about, who's looking at what, et cetera, et cetera. So with all of that in mind, how is this COVID draft cycle affecting you and your ability to get the best information possible?
Yeah, the first time I saw college football play in person this year was at the Senior Bowl. And I didn't know if you can call it, it was a practice. And that was the first time I'd seen a prospect in person since the SEC championship game. So it had been a long time. And that's a huge part of an evaluation process, is seeing these guys in person, whether that's me or a person who does it for a team. So I think what's happened this year, a lot of us are sharing information. A lot of scouts are just hanging out at home because they can't be on the road. And so my phone has been blowing up more than ever of these guys. They're watching tape the same time I'm watching tape, and we're comparing notes. We're comparing what we've heard about players from a work ethic and a background standpoint. So it is more of like a collective this year than in normal. And I know that will change as scouts, get in and start doing their team meetings, which a lot of them are doing this week. That will get shut down, right? It's no more texting your friends in the media to talk about players. But it has been a difficult process because you don't have you haven't been out on the road. You haven't been interacting with the players. You haven't interacted with the schools. And as you mentioned, without a traditional scouting combine, you're not going to have that base level information about a player. How tall are you? How much do you weigh? How fast do you run? How long are your arms? And even the Senior Bowl, which did a fantastic job of pulling in over 100 players from all parts of the country and safely holding an event, that's amazing, but that's just seniors. And there's another 200 players that would be invited to the combine that were not at the Senior Bowl. So there's gonna be a lot of information missing this year. I think what happens is we revert back to just watching game film on these players. And somewhat, we saw this happen last year in the first round, where the best players went early. We didn't see the workout warriors get the bump in round one. And in most cases, those guys actually were almost penalized because you hadn't seen the production, you hadn't seen the tape. So I think this year will be really unique, but it could be a positive for the good players.
So I have to ask you too, in light of that, obviously, again, you're not getting the full spectrum of information that you're usually getting, or used to getting at least. Do you feel as confident in your analysis of certain guys, or do you feel like you're delivering a grade with a bit of an asterisk and you're in, a caveat, if you will, that, hey, listen, from what I know, from what I have access to, he seems about here, versus in the past where you could confidently say, no, I've seen him in person, XYZ, I have the full spiel. Where's your head at in that regard?
No, Kelsey, that's a great question. I think a big part of it is this is a year where readers will want to trust and listen to and read people who they do trust, who they know how to evaluate players on their own. You're not reliant so much on your connections with the team. And so you can sit down and actually watch the tape, break it down, come up with your own rankings, which I'm fortunate enough to have come from an independent site in 2010 that no one had ever heard of, and got a job at Bleacher Report where I had to prove that I could scout players before I made connections. And so I'm thankful that I do have that background. I'm also having coached for years and then, independently scouted for years as well. So that is definitely something that's important this year. Is you have to really be an evaluator. You can't be a media mouthpiece this year of, a guy who, you know how to talk on camera. You have the media connections, but you don't actually do the background and the work. I think that's a huge part of this year. And the other side of that is you have to, also you do need those connections, because one person cannot watch 500 players at the depth that you need to. And don't let anyone fool you and act like they can, because it's impossible. So that's where you do need to have those, connections to be able to talk to, the scouts of the world and say, hey, there might be a small school guy that falls through the cracks, saying, do you want to devote an hour or two to watch the small school guy, or do you want to go watch an LSU player again? And so that's something that I will do a lot of, hey, there's this guy, I'm not sure, he's kind of on the fringe, should I watch him? And you try to get back some answers of, yeah, he's on our list, he's a top 300 player, you're going to want to watch him, or he's probably a camp guy, you can punt on him and go back to some of the players that are going to be drafted a little bit earlier.
Work smarter, not harder. That's my motto
Exactly.
for life. 10 times out of 10. Which, to get, okay, specifics, obviously we're a Cowboys show. I know, you mocked Rashawn Slater to the Cowboys in one of your more recent ones. You're up there in Chiefs Kingdom. We saw what the Kansas City Chiefs looked like without their starting tackles on Sunday night.
Wasn't great.
How realistic is that really? And obviously we don't know for sure what the future holds for Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins, but you also can't underestimate how important good offensive line play is. I guess that's a two-parter. How realistic do you think that is? And can you sell me on Rashawn Slater as a guard, at least at the beginning of his career?
Yeah, I think the key is it is realistic if Cincinnati doesn't take him. And a lot hinges on what happens with these quarterbacks in the top 10 of what does the market do with the guys who are available in terms of trade. We haven't even seen free agency yet. We're still a month and a half away from that. So I do think that it's realistic that Rashawn Slater is on the board at 10 and that he's the best player available. So not even in terms of need, he's just in terms of value. He's my number 4 overall player in this year's class. So if he's there at 10, that's a tremendous value, right? You're getting a blue chip player at number 10 overall. And that's how smart teams build is by going that route. Now, can I sell you on him from a positional value standpoint? That is hard without knowing what the future is for the two offensive tackles of the Dallas Cowboys. Tyron Smith missed a considerable part of last year. Lyle Collins missed all of last year. And so those two players are really the hinges that pick would swing on of, do you feel confident that both guys will be back? If so, then it might seem like a luxury to draft a player at number 10 overall who is going to play a little out of position, at least initially. But I love Rashawn Slater. He was an opt-out player this past year, but when you go back and watch his 2019 in the Big Ten, he's incredibly battle-tested. I know folks say he's a little bit shorter. I think his agility makes up for the fact that he is, 6'4". He might be on the short end of the spectrum for tackles, but I think his agility, his technique, he's incredibly poised. He never looks rushed. He never looks out of sorts. Those are the things that you love to see. And so a lot like, when Zach Martin was coming out of Notre Dame, I remember saying the same thing. Like, I think he'd be an all-pro guard. I think he could be really good at tackle. With Rashawn Slater, I think it's the same. I think he'd be a really good tackle, and that's where I rank him. I think if you do want to put him inside at guard, he could be an all-pro. And so whether that's, Connor Williams, my Texas guy down there as well, there's good depth on that offensive line and a lot of versatile players. Connor played left tackle. Zach played left tackle. Lyle played all over at LSU. That's something that the Cowboys seem to like in their offensive line. And I think Slater's versatility would be huge there too.
I would definitely not hate a swing and also a guy that can play both. So give it to me. I like what you're saying, Matt. I want to talk to you staying on the offensive side of things because, we love talking about this topic here in Cowboys country. Dak Prescott obviously doesn't have a deal yet. So I'm going to ask you to put your GM hat on for a minute. Let's just assume if there was an instance where this contract, it wasn't shored up here in the next coming weeks, would you be pushing for this team to draft a quarterback? And if so, do you have any potential realistic targets in that regard? I'm just here to stir things up, Matt. I'm sorry.
My first appearance, and Kelsey's trying to make everyone hate me. I like it. This is good. I think
you're welcome.
So if I put the GM hat on, I'm going to call Dak and say, what do you want? You want to rename the stadium, the star presented by Dak Prescott? We can do that. So I would back up the Brinks truck or whatever it takes. I do think, okay, in a very hypothetical situation, at 10, I think the problem you run into is that there could be 3 to 4 quarterbacks already off the board because the Jags are going to take Trevor Lawrence. We don't have to overthink that one. The Jets have a tough decision to make it 2. Do you trade the number 2 pick and keep Sam Darnold, or do you trade Sam Darnold and draft a quarterback? So 1 could be off the board there. The Falcons have a decision to make at 4 with Matt Ryan being 35 years old. The Panthers at 8 are another landing spot where we could see a quarterback come off the board. The Broncos right in front of you guys at 9, they could draft a quarterback. So the Cowboys, in a worst case scenario situation, could be looking at the top 4 quarterbacks off the board, which leaves you with Mac Jones from Alabama, he's consistent, he's efficient. There's not a whole lot to get excited about from an arm strength or a mobility standpoint. And I think the way the league is moving, and especially going from a quarterback who is so mobile in Dak Prescott, that would be a tough pill to swallow, even with Mac Jones being so prolific this past year for the Crimson Tide. But there are a lot of good quarterbacks in this class. The likelihood of one being there at 10 where you would feel great about losing Dak Prescott just doesn't exist.
So we're signing Dak, basically.
Yeah, I mean, yes, please.
Please.
Thank you so much for that. I got one more for you, and then we'll let you get out of here. And we're just going to pretend like the deal gets done with Dak so we don't all have to lose our minds. But I am curious, it prompts a lot of questions. Obviously, assuming Dak Prescott is on this team, the majority of the Cowboys' needs are on the defensive side of the ball. And it raises a lot of questions when you consider that Dan Quinn is here as a first-year defensive coordinator. And I'm just curious, looking back on Dan Quinn's time in Atlanta, they drafted Vic Beasley. They drafted, Deion Jones and Keanu Neal were 2 of their better picks on defense. When you look, and I'll just make it easy on you specifically at the 10th overall pick, whether it's one of these cornerbacks or maybe a Micah Parsons or a pass rusher, is there somebody in your head that screams Dan Quinn pick to you? Like the type of guy that you think could thrive in his defense?
There's not that one player this year on defense where you jump on the table for them. Even Micah Parsons, who tremendous athlete, right? I mean, there's some questions there too. But the hazing incident at Penn State a couple of years back that he's been tied to. There are a lot of questions. And the pass rushers, there's not a Chase Young this year, right? There's a couple guys who you would consider to be almost developmental players: Gregory Rousseau and Jalen Phillips out of Miami, Joseph Osai at Texas. Kwity Paye at Michigan. I think all those players are a fit for Dan Quinn. The difference is they're all bigger players. They're all 260 plus pounds. And as you mentioned, Dan Quinn, it seems, had a penchant for smaller speed rusher type players. So there's not a player where at 10 overall, you're like, oh my God, this is a perfect scheme fit. Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain at corner are both worthy of a top 10 selection. I think there's some debate as to whether or not they will still be on the board depending on what happens to free agency. So if they decided to go defense, I think corner is without a doubt the best fit. But should they head into this offseason and say, we're taking a defensive player in the first round, it might actually be a little bit smarter to try to trade back, let somebody come up for one of the tackles / quarterbacks and get a little bit extra draft capital.
All right,
Wouldn't be mad about that at all.
I was going to say, me either, for the record. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really do appreciate your time. Where can the good people find you and your work? I mean, this new site sounds fantastic, even if you are remotely interested in the draft. So please give us all the details.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at NFL Draft Scout. I think it's branded across all social media. So whether that's Instagram or Twitter, you can follow me there. And then the website is thedraftscout.com. And that officially launches today with a 7-round mock draft and team needs. And then the 15th, there will be my top 300 player big board with broken down by position as well. So draft fans should have no shortage of content to consume over the next couple weeks.
I love it. I love it. All right, my friend. Sure. I was going to say, I mean, shoot, me too. Thanks for hanging out with us. We do appreciate you. Matt Miller, everyone, the Draft Scout. All right, well, you heard from Matt some options that could be perfect for this Dallas Cowboys team. But guys, we're not done playing matchmaker quite yet. We have quite the lineup of potential suitors and landing places of some pretty famous NFL quarterbacks coming up next.
Welcome back to the show. And Kels, while I already said I'm a miserable grump who hates Valentine's Day, I love playing matchmaker. So I'm very excited about our next segment because I get to play Cupid and draw back my bow. I bet that sounds so bad. I don't care. There are unhappy marriages all over the NFL. Like half the quarterbacks in the league don't want to play for their current team. So why not play matchmaker and figure out where they're all going to wind up this year? And where better to start than with our buddy Carson Wentz?
Ooh, I love this one because you know what? Am I leading the right way? Nope, can't do it.
Nope,
all right, there we go. In line with it. Second time's a charm. Don't worry. All right, so Carson, let's chat. Here's the thing. It's very common for some of us to have unrealistic expectations. And maybe I should be directing this at, the Eagles front office more so than not. But if you think you're going to get more than a first rounder for that performance that we saw last season, you're wrong. And I just feel like at this point, maybe you need to settle in and appreciate the few offers that you do have. Go ahead and take the Indy one. It makes sense to me. I mean, you just are going to replace another good old boy. Maybe you could, throw some pseudo curse words in there when they just sack you and, give them compliments for beating you again. But they're on the up and up, so it's a, good thing for you as well. So I don't know. I'm going Indy for Carson. I like that move. I think it can make a lot of sense. And I just feel like Philadelphia needs to chill out on their expectations of what they're going to get in return.
I completely agree with you. Stop pretending like Carson Wentz is worth that much. Let him go reunite with his old coach. I like where your head's at for sure.
All right, let's talk even more controversy. And Deshaun Watson has been a name that has been thrown out a lot. And there are a lot of options for this young talent. I'm very intrigued to see where you think he should land.
I mean, wouldn't it just be incredible if Deshaun Watson was in South Beach? Like, wouldn't that be so much fun? The Dolphins have the draft capital because Houston gave it all to them in the first place. So just send it back to Houston and maybe throw Tua Tagovailoa in the trade as well. Send him down to Texas. That's fine. And Deshaun Watson going down to an exciting Dolphins team, I just think that would be a ton of fun. I don't know how realistic it is, but nothing about this show has ever been realistic. So, just let us have some freaking fun, right? Nobody wants to see Deshaun Watson in cold, dreary Chicago. No, I want electric green uniforms, South Beach, hot temperatures, electric lime greens. That's what I need, and that's what I want. I said electric green twice.
Temperatures.
What about Matt Ryan? What about Matt Ryan, Kels?
Matt Ryan needs to stay in his marriage. Listen, you've been committed for a minute. I need you to go to therapy and figure it out. You're there. You're going to be buried there. Just chill. So you're staying in Atlanta for me. I don't have time to worry about more movement for you. The end. Thank you. Goodbye.
I actually agree with you, and Matt Ryan can go ahead and call Aaron Rodgers later this spring, and they can commiserate about how their teams drafted young quarterbacks to replace them without letting them leave, because I won't be surprised if Matt Ryan winds up in the same situation.
Here's another one for you that I also personally would put in counseling for marital issues, and Jimmy G. What about you, Dave? I mean, I think they just need to work it out, but I could be wrong. No. Convince me otherwise.
Because, again, I love a good reunion story. Like Houston or Miami can just send Houston's draft picks back to him for Deshaun. Send Jimmy G back to his ex. Maybe they had something beautiful. Maybe the New England Patriots realized the error of their ways letting him go so soon, and they want a good quarterback back in their locker room. I don't think Jimmy G would be that expensive to get. I know they went to the Super Bowl last year, but that was not because of Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's be very clear about that. And I think you could get him out of there for cheap. His contract is favorable. Just let him go back to his ex. Maybe they can try it out. I keep doing this. I keep just offering things up.
Or maybe it was called a breakup because it was broken in the first place. But what do I know?
Which we don't have time to get into Kirk, but I would Kirk Cousins go to San Francisco, and then you can ship Jimmy G back to his ex in New England. I'm all about a good reunion. What I'm not all about, I know. I bet they would like that. What I'm not all about is the quarterback controversy that's about to be brewing in New York. Because I'll bet you $50 the New York Jets are going to draft a quarterback this spring, which makes me wonder, what about Sam? What about Sam Darnold?
I don't know, man. I feel like
you don't even have an opinion about the Jets. You're just like, the Jets. Ugh.
It's, if you guys watch Nick Eatman, he always talks about a Jag, like just another guy. And I'm not trying to say that about Sam, but I'm going to say that about Sam. It's kind of whatever to me. I'm very indifferent on the situation. Maybe Washington, they can use someone, like, sure. Or maybe he just stays and then lets someone come and be drafted and he can teach them the playbook and they fight for the starting position this upcoming year. I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion. But I would love to hear yours, Dave, because I'm sure you have some super wacky, like, 3-team trade, like full NBA status, and you're like, this would make perfect sense.
It's even better. It's even better than that. I've got a great analogy. Like February 11th or 12th rolls around and you don't have a date and you're feeling really sad, and all of a sudden guys that you never would normally talk to start sounding appealing. You've never been in that position before? Oh, well.
Excuse you. No, I haven't.
I have on a regular basis. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say the Chicago Bears need a quarterback. They're going to lose the Wentz sweepstakes. They're definitely going to lose the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. And all of a sudden, Sam Darnold starts looking pretty attractive up in Chicago in like a month and a half. And they're going to get desperate and do something stupid to get him on their team. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, wow.
The Chicago Bears are the desperate guy at the bar. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, no. That's sad. All right. Well, I have one last option for you in said dating game. What about Derek Carr?
I just love how Derek Carr has become the trade guy of the year every year. Like, the Raiders clearly don't like this guy. Like, every single offseason, it's like, whoa, Derek Carr's days might be numbered. Like, they were looking at quarterbacks in the draft last year. He actually had a pretty damn good season in 2020. If the Raiders want to get rid of him, I don't know. I feel like we already named all the teams that need a quarterback. Hey, plenty of people are trying to put our guy, Dak Prescott, in Washington. You're never going to hear me say that. But the Washington football team does need a quarterback. Maybe they could pry Derek Carr out of Las Vegas if they're so desperate for one. But you can't have mine. You can't have Dak. So go look at Derek Carr if you want to.
All right. Well, we just played our own version of the matching game. Wish Dave and I luck on our love adventures.
I set up more dates in this segment than I have in the last year for myself. So, like, hey.
Well, here's the thing. You might have to try to get a date to get one. So that's a start, my friend. Anyways, so you guys have a lovely holiday, if you consider it a holiday. If you feel like showering Dave and I with just all of the love and affection, and also we have a hot take for you. It's a really trash take. It's by Dave. He thinks that red velvet cake is just chocolate cake that is colored red. I disagree.
It is.
Anyways,
it is.
Guys, have a great week. We really do appreciate you tuning in with us yet again. For David Hellman, producer Caden, I am Kelsey Charles. This has been another episode of The Star at Night.